It is time, after a few weeks of jumping into the spring 2022 anime season, it's time for me to give my best of the spring season so far. Now, many of these titles can flop, some of these can actually get better, but so far, after getting into the season, which is absolutely insane, by the way, so many titles, so many anticipated titles, so many returning titles, it's really hard to choose. I took quite a while. It's always that last one. That fifth. It's always difficult to figure out which one is going to go in that last slot that you have. It's just been absolutely insane. I've been enjoying this season so far. I've been doing my first impressions of all the shows, so definitely if you have not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you get all those videos. But before I get started, as always, make sure to go down in the comments down below and let me know what your top 5 titles are for the season so far. What are you enjoying? If it's not 5, that's fine. Just let me know what you're enjoying. As always, for my main top 5 that I'm picking, they will not be returning series. It'll be only new series. I'll get into my honorable mentions as well as the returning shows, what I'm most excited about later on in the video. But without further ado, let's jump into my top 5 titles of the spring 2022 anime season so far. Starting off with my number 5, yes, like I said before, I fought with myself quite a while to figure out which one's going to go in this last slot, but in the end I chose aharen-san is Indecipherable, or aharen-san wa hakarenai. That was the one that I think every single episode I really enjoyed. Now, this is going to be in that realm of kind of like the teasing character type story. It's just 2 characters that sort of find a connection. Definitely something in the vein of something like Komi-san Can't Communicate. That was a series that was about a girl that has issues with communicating. This is kind of a similar thing. You have a girl that is very soft-spoken. You kind of find out really quickly that it's because she doesn't want to push people away. She's basically decided to become very, very quiet and not overbearing because she always scared people away before, and so it kind of made her shut herself in. And you have her neighbor, Matsuboshi, who is trying to communicate with her and trying to make a connection with her, and so he's trying to tell her, look, it's okay to be communicative. It's okay to be friends. And yes, that turns into the whole idea that you've released the beast now. She's super clingy. She loves to jump into his arms. She's like super overbearing. And yes, very quirky. And like I said, every single episode presents something that just makes this aharen so goofy and so entertaining to be around that I just love the connection between these 2 characters. They're just absolutely adorable together. And yes, aharen is, like I said, a goofball and just super cute. And there's a lot of contrast between the 2 characters. She's very petite and he's very, very tall. And yeah, he sort of has that thing going about him that he's very, very scary. If you're looking for a cute little rom-com that's not so much the romance, yeah, it seems like there's something blossoming between these 2 characters, but it's very skit-based, very situational comedy that kind of surrounds the goofiness of aharen and Matsuboshi trying to figure her out. I highly recommend it. I've been enjoying it so far. Every episode's been fantastic. Has some fantastic EDs to be thrown in there as well, but it's been a lot of fun. Aharen-san wa hakarenai is definitely a recommendation for me. Moving on to my number 4, let's get some slice of life in here. Deiomon. This is a series that I had a lot of hype being built up about it through some people that I know. It's a series that the original source material had a lot of positivity surrounding it, and so when the adaptation was coming, I was pretty excited about the series. It looked like a slice of life series that was going to be really solid. But what I wasn't really expecting as much as I did before is the bunny drop syndrome. It's this idea of the guy that's kind of, yeah, he's not really that old, he's in his 20s, coming back home and sort of becoming a parental figure to somebody that lost their father. You have the story where Nagumo is the main character. At some point, he left home. He kind of felt like his grandfather didn't want him to take over the sweet shop that they've been running, so he decided to leave home and become a musician. Well, after learning that his father had to go to the hospital at some point, he realized that he needs to go back home and take care of the sweet shop that his family runs. But when he gets there, he comes to find out that they already have a successor, so to speak, for the sweet shop, and that's this girl named Itsuka. She's this 10-year-old girl that was left there, abandoned there by her father. What kind of comes from this is kind of this slice of life story about Nagumo taking over the shop again. But the other thing is this aspect of his mother wanting him to sort of be the father figure to Itsuka because she no longer has her father. And like I said before, it does give that sense of a bunny drop idea, this guy that has never had children suddenly becoming a father, but I don't think the story so far is pushing it heavy. This doesn't feel like it's bunny drop. Nagumo does want to support Itsuka, he does want to help her, but it's not as if he wants to become her father. And so far the tone of the series has been excellent. It's not heavy drama, it's very laid back, very wholesome slice of life that I definitely love to see. I'm enjoying the characters so far. They've kind of explored a couple side characters already, and so far every one of them I've enjoyed. And I'm definitely looking forward to more of it. So if you're looking for a slice of life, very laid back, wholesome type of story, definitely look no further than Deiomon. I definitely been enjoying it. Moving on to my number 3, I have The Executioner and Her Way of Life. This is a series that I have been absolutely surprised by. Now, I did have some expectations coming into the season for this show, mainly around the synopsis. The synopsis kind of lays out this idea of it's a fantasy world where isekais come to, but it's from the perspective of those that don't want the isekais there. It's taboo in this world for people to summon otherworlders. And it kind of lays it out as if everybody that gets summoned to this world is from Japan. And it was all great at first. They have this whole history about all these kingdoms summoning people from this other world, our world, to this fantasy world, and they have these powers. Every single one of them has a power. But while they brought technology, they brought knowledge of our modern society, all this knowledge they were bringing and all the power and strength that they were able to bring to this world was great and everything. But there's another side of this, is that every time these other worlders would use their ability, it would slowly more and more become more powerful and uncontrollable to the point where they cause these disasters. We're talking like entire nations being wiped out sort of disasters. So what happened is in this world of Faust, which is kind of the highest society, it's like the church, they basically enlist these executioners that will go out and find out when these people are summoned and kill them. And we follow one such assassin named Mino, and in the early episodes, she finds one of these isekai people, finds out about them, brings them away from there, and then kind of tests them to see if what their power is and if it would corrupt them. And during this whole process, she ends up finding out about another isekai named Akari, who has the ability to heal. And she quickly goes inside of this kingdom and captures this girl and escapes with her to bring her away from there. And then when she was going to execute this girl, because again, she's an executioner, she comes to find out that Akari has the ability to heal herself. She's able to rewind time upon herself to remove the wounds and revive herself, essentially. So this turns this whole thing where she has to take Akari all the way back to the church to do a ceremony to wipe her out of this world. And what I found so fascinating about this whole story is, one part is that I really am intrigued by what Akari is and what her power is, the ability to reverse time and what that sort of implies. I've been having a lot of fun really speculating at what all is at play with this particular world. Not only that, but I really enjoy the gray area that it sits in. Obviously, it feels really wrong that Mino has to kill these students. They're innocent children being brought from another world to this world, but the people of this world obviously know they can't go back. And they know that they will always get so powerful that they will destroy entire continents. So they're kind of forced to have to execute these people to prevent disasters from happening, to prevent more deaths from happening. And so, like I said, it's kind of that very uncomfortable gray area that I just eat up. I love that sense of this is wrong, but at the same time, to not do anything is even worse. But it has me excited for every single week for this series. I cannot wait for more. Definitely, if you decide to pick up the series, make sure to check out my weekly impressions on it. I've been having a lot of fun just speculating on what's happening in this particular series. The Executioner and Her Way of Life, I definitely recommend this series. Moving on to my number 2, we have Spy X Family or Spy Family, depending on how you want to say it. It has an X in it. What do you expect? But anyways, I have been absolutely loving this series. Now, it's great because it's a series that's being co-produced by Wit Studio and Cloverworks. They're both really fantastic studios. They're taking turns on the episodes, and I just have been loving the quality of the series so far. And not only that, but I love the characters themselves and what it's kind of presenting. It essentially follows Twilight, who is a spy who is basically working behind the scenes to keep peace between these two nations, the West and the East. And at some point, he's assigned to have to get a wife and a child so that he can attend this one school in order to meet this guy named Donovan. Turns out this guy, Donovan, is working behind the scenes to cause war between these two nations, and the only place that he ever actually meets people at is at this school. So he needs to actually get into the school till he can go to the meets so that he can find Donovan. And obviously the weird thing this creates is this spy who has no family, he's never looked at relationships, but just to get his information that he needs, now having to procure a family and the oddities that come from that, having to deal with a child, having to get a wife, all this stuff just for his job. And the twist that comes from this whole thing is obviously he's a spy. And he has to keep that a secret. But as we find out, the girl that he ends up adopting, Anya, is able to read minds, so she knows that he's a spy. And not only that, but the wife that he ends up finding eventually is an assassin, and she wants to keep that a secret. So what you basically have is you have a father and a mother who have their secrets that they have to keep a secret, and then you have the daughter who just knows everything. And she doesn't want anybody to know her secret, which is to read minds. And it creates a really cute dynamic and a lot of great comedy beats. Now, the thing that I wasn't really expecting that I'm really enjoying about this series is that it's a lot more wholesome and a lot more deep than I thought it would be. Now, it's not super deep, it's not heavy stuff here, but getting into the aspects of the characters themselves that are changing within them that I, again, wasn't really expecting. Seeing Lloyd realize the important things in life, the things that he forgot once before. He was abandoned and he was in this war-torn area, and he doesn't really want that to happen again. That's why he wants peace. He doesn't like Anya crying because he remembers himself from a long time ago crying alone in the streets. You have Yor, who was brought in by this assassin group and was taught to be an assassin, and her desire to keep peace within the people. She's always looking down upon the people of the city and realizing these are the people that I'm protecting. And Anya, who seems to be a lab experiment that, again, was created for the sole purpose of creating peace. You have this commonality between the three of these people, but at the same time, this desire to keep themselves a secret from each other, but all having the same goal of world peace, the same goal of protecting what's important around them. And seeing the change in them, I think is going to be the really fantastic thing of the series, along with, again, the comedy and the goofy action, all that kind of stuff mixed in there. It's just got great chemistry so far, and I just cannot wait for more. It's just a fun series to watch. So yeah, if somehow you missed this series, go watch it, Spy X Family. It's going to be running for 2 cores. Of course, the other core is going to be later on in the year, but I just cannot wait for more of this series. And for my number 1, if anybody's been keeping track of me lately, they probably know what this is. Summertime Rendering. This series is phenomenal so far. I'm absolutely loving, and it's sad that a lot of people are not watching the series just because, unfortunately, for a lot of regions, it's not available. It was picked up by Disney Plus. This was Disney Plus's way to get into Japan, and so a lot of the other regions, it's very unknown at this point where and when it's going to start. So, but it's worth it. Like, it's so worth it. I am absolutely loving this series so far. A lot of people have been saying that it's pretty much ReZero. I can say that's a good way of describing it for most people these days because most people know what ReZero is. But I would more put it in the vein of something like Higurashi When They Cry. That series has a very similar feel to this, but it's doing its own things. And I think the thing that this is doing that's so much different than ReZero, and very similar to Higurashi When They Cry, is it's doing mystery so phenomenally. Like, this is, if you're looking for a mystery, a dark mystery, this is doing it so incredibly well. It follows Shinpei, who is returning home to go to the funeral for his sister, Ushio. He lost his parents when he was young, and he was brought into this family, and this family had Ushio in it. And Ushio, unfortunately, he recently passed away. But when he arrives there, he finds out that they performed an autopsy on Ushio, and they end up finding out that she had strangle marks, which concludes that she didn't drown trying to help somebody, that she was killed. But not only that, but we kind of start getting into this mystery about this shadow. Apparently there's this disease or this shadow that's in this particular village, or it's some old folk tale that was long before the war, that if people seen the shadow of themselves, they would die and that shadow would kill their family. And as the first episode starts to conclude, you start to see that might be a true story. And the mystery that's behind that is just, I'd eat it up. Like, I think the thing that this series does so well is the mystery that it kind of presents is sprinkled throughout the episodes. And it's sort of things that you take note of as you watch it. Like, why was this emphasized? Why did this happen, and why did the character take note of this? But what's great is as you see those little nuggets and you gather them and you take note of them, eventually the story rewards you for it. You feel kind of like this moment of like, yeah, I kind of seen that. I seen that thing, and now I know where it fits in right here. It's such a great mystery in that regard. It never feels like you're lost. But at the same time, you always have questions. And that's something I haven't really seen in things like Higurashi. It wasn't definitely not something I've seen in ReZero. It's enough questions to keep you guessing, enough mysteries to keep you wondering, enough answers to make you feel fulfilled, and just a great story overall that I cannot wait for more. And it's so great to know this is a full adaptation of the original manga, 25 episodes. If it's this fantastic already, I cannot wait for more. Hopefully it doesn't drop off. I'm really hoping it doesn't drop off because it's been excellent so far and I cannot wait for more. I am at the edge of my seat. I want to know more about this world and just what's going to happen next. But yeah, if you have not already, again, unfortunately, it's very hard to get a hold of. If you have Disney Plus, you can check to see if it's up there now. But either way, I can't not watch this series, and I'm too afraid of spoilers to not watch it. And that's the other difficult thing that I'm facing. I don't want to wait because I know somebody's going to spoil something for me. Even though the manga, they can spoil it for me, but we'll see where it goes from here. And that's it. Like I said, I have a lot of honorable mentions. I'm loving In the Heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki. I love the character designs. It's super cute. It looks fantastic because Cloverworks is doing some amazing work on it. I cannot wait each week for these characters. They're just too adorable, and I'm having a lot of fun watching it. Healer Girl really surprised me. It has lulling points, but at the same time, it has fantastic music, and I really love the idea of how they've grounded this idea of people being able to sing to heal people into almost like a real world environment. This idea of them being in the medical field and everything. It's just been fantastic. It looks great, and I cannot wait for more of that series. Your boy Kong Ming has fantastic music as well. I love all the covers they've been doing. It's been a lot of fun. I really do love the idea of the fish out of water, but not only that, but the idea of this tactician helping this girl find success in the modern times Japan. It's been a lot of fun. It's PA work, so it looks incredible. It's just been a very enjoyable series. Dance Dance Dancer, I'm kind of mixed on. Like, I kind of hate the main character. I really do. But at the same time, I kind of feel like there's going to be a payoff for stomaching him. But it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it. His instructor is fantastic, but it's basically a guy getting into ballet, even though he feels like it's something that people will make fun of him for. It's a lot about acceptance and accepting something that you really enjoy. And I'm sure it's going to have a really nice payoff. Mappa has been doing a fantastic work on it, and I just been enjoying a lot of the characters besides the main character. There's gonna be a payoff. I know it. But man, watching him just stand by with a lot of that bullying, which, I mean, I don't expect him to be a hero, but it's been good though. And finally, my last honorable mention is Heroines Run the Show. I'm actually very surprised by this show. Now, again, it's another one where I really hate the two guys of the show that she's having to be a manager to. It's essentially these two guys that are idols that are being now managed by this girl that's in their class. And she's a goofball. She's a very hard worker. It has that feeling of a go-getter that you want to root for. She can get a little bit loud at times, but I don't know. I've been enjoying it. I mean, it's based off of a song that Honeyworks did. I'll be curious to see if it has legs, but so far I've been enjoying it, and I'll be looking forward to more of that series. And for returning shows, yes, I'm absolutely thrilled at return of Ascendance of Bookworm. I love this series so much. I hope you guys are joining me for that on a weekly basis. I know I got a lot of people recruited into watching that show, and I've been loving the fact that everybody's giving me feedback of, thanks for suggesting this. It's so great. I cannot wait for more of this series. Every episode, I am just so hooked, and I cannot take my eyes off of it. It's a phenomenal series. It's an isekai, but it's from a different vantage point of a girl that just wants to enjoy books, and a lot about the characters that she faces. She's thrown into a commoner's area where they're very poor. They're having to basically strive to survive, and it's really all about her finding a place, and at the same time dealing with the burdens that are given upon her because of the weak bodies that she's placed inside of. Mine is fantastic. I love her to death, and I just cannot wait for more of this series. It's so phenomenal. Kaguya-sama Love is War still delivers, like after so many seasons. It's still hilarious. The skits are fantastic. The narrator sells every single scene. It's just a treasure to watch that series, and I'm loving that it's still holding up. Like, the jokes never get old. Demon Girl Next Door, Shamiko is back. I love her to death. This is kind of a personal love of mine. I think Shamiko is fantastic. I love the characters in this series. It's so goofy to have this girl that's this demon that has to take down the magical girl, but the magical girl is a sweetheart. I just love their comedy. I love their chemistry. It's just so much fun. I feel like this season's a lot more faster paced. Like, it's just moving way too fast, but I still love it to death, and I cannot wait for more. Yes, Kaginado coming back has been fantastic. If you're a fan of the Key Studio stuff, like Clannad, Air TV, and all that stuff, you should be watching this series, and Season 2 has been fantastic so far. I love that they actually had somebody finally acknowledge, why does everybody die in Key stuff? They had to point it out. They finally pointed it out. Oh, I love that so much. But yeah. And then Dawn of the Witch. I've been enjoying that series. It essentially is a sequel to Grimoire of Zero. I've been enjoying it. It's not doing anything phenomenal so far, but so far I've actually enjoyed the characters they've kind of introduced. The main character's very blank slate, but it seems like they're changing him a little bit to give him some character as he kind of travels with all these others. So I've been enjoying it, but yeah, that's it. That's all of it. That's all I'm going to list out. There's so many shows, so many good shows this season. I cannot wait for more. I hope you guys will join me for it. We're going to be doing our First Impressions podcast here soon, but like I said before, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I do impressions on all these shows and more, as well as episode-by-episode impressions for many of these shows, so I hope you guys will join me for that. As always, again, make sure to go down in the comments down below. Let me know what your top favorite are of the season so far. Additionally, if you want to support us more, we have a link to our Patreon, our tips link down in the description below. We definitely appreciate it. It supports us, and y'all take care.